Okay. Okay, well, good morning, everyone. My name is Fred Cochran, and I am a coordinator here at San Joaquin County Office of Education. I work for the Regional System of District and School Support, Region 6, and I am happy today to host an instructional leadership network gathering or meeting on school climate for you. The slides are available for you to be able to follow along if you'd like, or to use at a later date. If you notice on the bottom of the screen here, there is a Google link to go to the slides themselves. If you don't have time to do that right now, that's fine, but you may want to go to that at some point in time if you're interested in any of the articles, because I have everything linked to the Google slide presentation. So, if you're just joining call, please be sure to use the chat feature whenever you wish. It's more fun to have us talking to each other. And so if you just joined on, if you could find the chat feature and introduce yourself and where you're currently working, that would be great. And I'm looking forward to presenting to all of you today. The meeting will be recorded, so if you have to leave during this time and you wanted to see what you missed, you'll have that option to do that as well. Okay. Does anybody have any questions for me before we start? Okay, and I'll take it as we'll get things going here. So this is our presentation for Instructional Leadership Network today. School climate, as you know, is an important aspect of what drives the success of our schools. So this presentation isn't just meant to be something I give to you, but something we share together and share with others. So I hope you'll find that some of this information, it may be a review for you, but it may be that you'll pick up some new thoughts or things that you might want to share. Okay, so when we think about school climate, and we look for a definition of school climate, I think you'll notice that my little visual representation, school plus the weather, but school plus climate. And we know the weather can change at any time, right? And so climate is one of those variables that does change. So, but in some cases, obviously at school, it can be controlled in some ways. So you may have a thought of what school climate means to you. Here is a definition from National School Climate Center. I'll let you. So school climate, in case some of you are on as this call audio only, school climate refers to the quality and character of school life. It is based on patterns of students, parents, and school personnel's experience of school life and reflects norms, goals, values, interpersonal interactions, teaching, and learning practices, and organizational structures. Wow, that's quite a bit, isn't it? So it's not something that's works in isolation. There's just so many things that affect how school climate is currently, at your school site, how it's viewed and looked at. So one thing that we have done in the past when we've talked about school climate is to talk about school culture as well, because of the fact that sometimes there's people think of them as one thing, but they definitely have distinctions from one another. By looking at the screen here, you can see that we have a graphic here describing what school culture is and what school climate is. So I think if you're all able to read that, you can maybe if I could ask, if you would be willing to just kind of share maybe a couple of these that stand out to you. Sorry about that.
Probably for me, the thinking that climate is easy to change. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I would, but I guess thinking about it, that would make sense that the climate is easy to change, and it's the culture that's not easy to change.
Right. And we know culture can be so deeply, well, it's something that it's maybe developed over time. It could be the culture of teaching that doesn't really reflect on, it's what you sometimes cannot see, whereas climate is something that's a feeling you get immediately, right?
Yes, yes.
So, I think the fact is that a climate can change quickly by just maybe changing a few things. Let's just say the front office, the first interaction a parent has when they come into an office,
right.
That can definitely set the stage for emotion, feelings, how you're perceived, how you're respected, how you're welcomed. So climate is something that's kind of, it can be adjusted in ways as well, that it all depends on how the state of the institution that day, right? How are the kids doing? How's the weather doing? What's going on in the news? What's going on at home? All these things can affect something. So I think that's where we say it can be it changes quickly or could change quickly. Any other thoughts about that? So where culture can take years to evolve, climate may be easy to change. I think one that really stands out to me, I remember when I first started teaching about Mondays, because Monday you had permission to be miserable on Monday. Everybody was kind of looking, they were tired, they did a lot over the weekend or whatever. But climate differs from, day to day, month to month, right? So, and another one that really stands out to me is culture is a part of us where climate surrounds us. So that I feel is an interesting way to think about it. Culture is kind of internal, where climate can be external, right?
That's interesting.
Yeah. So if you look down here, when you are, if you have time to do it now, but you don't have to, I'm going to share it with you now. There's hyperlinks throughout these slides, and this is an article written by Steve Gruner about school culture. They are not the same thing. They are some points I wanted to, this is a good read that you're welcome to, share as you like. But it really, let me get my notes here. It really, when we look, some things I wanted to highlight here, that it goes in, of course, talks about what school climate is. An organization's culture determines its climate. I thought that was an interesting thing, because the emotion of, and the mood and the expectations and the whatever you want to, you can coining a lot of different things into this can have a direct impact on what the climate of the school is. And so I thought that was interesting. And towards the bottom here of this page, an organization's culture dictates its collective personality. Continuing this analogy, if culture is the personality of the organization, then climate represents the organization's attitude. So again, it goes into saying it's much easier to change an organization's attitude, which is the climate, than it is to change its personality. I thought that was kind of an interesting takeaway from this. And one more to highlight for you. Climate is the main leverage point for any culture, which means that if school leaders want to shape a new culture, they should start with an assessment of the climate. And you will see below here that this is the graphic that is on the slides. So this is where we got this information. So it's a short read, but a good read, I think. And it starts the conversation. So I wanted to share that with you all. Okay, moving back to my slide deck. I can. Whoops, sorry. Okay, so I am using an Apple computer, so I'm a little rusty on navigating this. So I beg for your. All right, here we go. No, I didn't do that right. All right. Okay, so positive climate has been associated with improved academic achievement, graduation rates and attendance, behavioral outcomes, and very important, I think, is parent involvement. How about how do you feel about what you're doing at your school right now in order to address these areas and how climate addresses these areas? Do you have anything you'd like to share? How do you build the momentum on a positive environment for your students, staff, families?
Well, for attendance, we every month we have perfect attendance ceremony. And at the end of the year, we have a big ceremony with perfect attendance for the year and multiple years. We also, every 4 times a year, we celebrate attendance by having a play day, I guess you would say. Like, we get jumpers, so that's for attendance, behavior, uniform. So we have a big celebration for those things 4 times a year. And then I'm working to try to increase our parent involvement in some of our committees and things. So I'm just starting to work with that. And then we do the PBIS.
Oh, good. And what implementation stage are you in with PBIS? Are you?
We have it in place, so we've really been going strong. This is like the 2nd year. Mm-hmm. Last year we started with playground behavior and training our noon duty to have those positive interactions and for them to take more responsibility for the behaviors on the playground and having the kids know their expectations. So that's been working because we've had less problems on the playground after having trained the noon duty and having them do those positive interactions with the kids.
Great. That's great to hear. The call later today, I'm not sure if you're able to join us or not for the family engagement roundtable, but we are going to be talking about how to promote that positive behavior on the playground and what. Oh, and actually, we have it built into this slide deck. I'm sorry. So we are going to be talking about that a little bit more this morning about the playground, the lunchroom, what you can do in order to promote that positive climate. Good.
Oh, good.
Great. So the parent involvement, we're going to, that call's going to start at 10:45, and that will center on Joyce Epstein's model of parent involvement, and then I have some school surveys that you might be interested in looking at. So, okay. All right. So as I mentioned before, climate is one of the 8 state priorities, but it is not a standalone priority. It's kind of intertwined with other priorities, 8 state priorities. If we look here, it's relevant to academic achievement, pupil engagement, parent involvement, and also in the support of state standards. Okay. So interesting, you know, and makes sense that things don't work in isolation, that we can address more than one thing within our priorities so that, you know, it all connects better together, I think. So, so let's take a look at some aspects of school climate. This comes from the U.S. Department of Education Safe and Supportive Schools model. And the 3 overarching themes in regards to the aspects of school climate are engagement, safety, and environment. Looking at this as far as engagement, this relates to relationships, respect for diversity, and school participation. So these are, you know, as you think about engaging your students and you think about how these 3 things are so related to one another, very important to keep that in mind. And then we look at safety. You know, we think about, you know, we're always thinking about, you know, we don't want kids to be injured or hurt, but we also have to really think too about the emotional safety of kids, the social emotional aspect of their being. And if we're not addressing that, we definitely will see that some kids are just not able to engage because of barriers that they have, some emotional pieces that need to be addressed. Also involved here is the substance use, so drug and alcohol. And then as far as the environment, the physical environment, the academic environment, wellness, and disciplinary environments. So these are the overarching themes in regards to the aspects of school climate. And then when I click here on this hyperlink, it'll take you to the importance of school climate. And this is where this information comes from. And we've used this, of course, in trainings as well. And it is a good read to do with staff and other administrators that you might be working with. So sorry for that, the National Climate, School Climate Council defines school climate as norms, values, expectations that support people feeling socially, emotionally, and physically safe. And it's part of that inner personal relationships. It's a product of those interpersonal relationships among students, families, teachers, support staff, and administrators. So it's important that we think about the whole community here, right? That it's not just the front office, or it's not just the teacher, teachers. It's also about the bus drivers. It's about the custodians, the librarians, the volunteers at school. It's all these members of our learning community have an impact on the climate. So important to think about how do we do professional learning for all partners in our schools in order to keep our kids safe and to keep a consistency. And I know I heard you mention that PBIS is an important part of your school, and this is something that is practiced throughout the school, inside, outside the classroom, right?
Yes.
So important that we think of all the members, all the players in these roles, and how to support them in a busy learning environment. So there's so much going on. So a couple of things I wanted to highlight. That, of course, a positive school climate is recognized as an important target for school reform and improving behavioral, academic, and mental health outcomes for students. There is a example here that I'm going to try and highlight here on, favorable school climate linked with higher student academic motivation and engagement, elevated psychological well-being, and schools promoting engaging learning environments tend to have fewer student absences. So we know that is, and you're celebrating the fact that you want, your expectation, you want 100% attendance. So you're rewarding your kids for getting to a certain achieving that, and it's celebrating why it's important, right?
Yes, exactly.
Good. Great. That's good. Also, this article will highlight the California Healthy Kids Survey, which I know you all do. And I have some tools to share with you today to kind of take that data and look at that in some ways that may promote some different outcomes as a result of the data that you collect. And here, when assessing school climate, educators should consider these key factors. You want to choose a reliable and valid assessment, assess annually, survey across perspectives. So that means not just teachers, students, but also families, administrators, support professionals. They should all be part of that, the findings on that. And then communicate those findings. Sometimes that's overlooked, and letting people know what what the plan is as a result of that information that you receive. Take action. Make good decisions, of course. It'll guide your decision making, and keep repeating this, because this is kind of a continuous process, right? Right. Also, I just wanted to, you already mentioned that you use the PBIS at your school. And also, in that model, we hope that it helps to prevent bullying, but are you using any other bullying interventions at your school? or is it just a topic of class meetings or what?
Usually, we don't have a lot of instances of true bullying.
Mm-hmm.
So that hasn't been a focus of ours.
Good.
Which is great. I think the focus, let me take that back. With our 7th and 8th graders, the focus has been more of the cyber issue,
Mm-hmm.
rather than bullying on school. So a lot of it is happening off campus through the internet. So that's pretty much what we've been dealing with, and we've been having, and it's mostly our young ladies, so we've been having some mentoring groups with the counselor,
Mm-hmm.
and pretty much talking about, the effects of cyberbullying and showing some of those videos where people have actually committed suicide over cyberbullying. So really trying to target in on that mostly.
Right. Yeah, that's and it's also trickles down into even some of the younger grades, 6th and 5th grade as well. I mean, it's,
Yes.
it becomes more of a distraction, and it can be, as you said, very serious. Social emotionally can affect students when they are picked upon or picked on through cyberbullying. So important to keep parents, informed and to know what they can do at home in order to promote positive use of social media.
Right.
Because if you don't address it, then and you just take it away from kids, a lot of times they'll just figure their own way to do it because they're going to react to that. So better to think of ways that how do we promote positive relationships with one another. And also the PBIS probably is, the expectations that you have for student behavior and students understanding those expectations, I think that cross over quite easily into this topic with your counselors.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Good. So do you have a full-time counselor at your site?
We have a counselor 3 days a week.
3 days a week. So
Mm-hmm.
the counselor stays pretty busy?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So this is a short read, but it's I think a good thing to talk about if you are having conversations at your school sites about school climate. Makes it kind of easy to follow, I think. So, all right. So you have access to that. And I am trying to get back to my slides here. Here we go. Okay, my computer's frozen. That's not good. Okay, let's see if we can get this going. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
All right. It just wants to. I'll take a pause for a second here. I'm going to try something a little different here, see if I can pull this up through my Chrome. All right, booting up here. So much for Safari. Once I thought it was my best friend, it's not anymore. Okay. Okay, so social emotional learning is I have a short video here that I wanted to play. It's very important aspect of school when we look at those overarching aspects of school climate. We do talk about the emotional safety of students. Are you aware of CASEL, C-A-S-E-L?
I believe I've heard of that before.
Yeah, it's it is a collaborative for social emotional learning, and they have a lot of free resources that you might be interested in sharing with your counselor there. Do you have a few minutes to watch a short video with me?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So this is an overview of CASEL, and let's take a look at this.
What do you really want for your children? You want them to be happy, healthy, able to relate to other people, have the ability to set goals and to make good decisions. If we don't teach them in school, a lot of children are not getting these most basic, most important, critical life skills.
Our children are begging us for the right to believe in themselves and the right to be inspired. The children are crying out and saying, I don't see purpose in my life. I don't have a dream anymore.
You make achievements, but you never get to the top.
It's like, okay, I'm going to go to school. What's the value if I'm not even going to be able to relate to anyone? SEL is trying to bring a balance to the individual and what are the personal competencies you need to develop to be successful. How do you pull them all together so that kids can relate and navigate the world more effectively?
It's a great demand, and it's a growing demand. I think it comes from all kinds of sectors. It comes from the business world, who believes that the biggest skill problem we have is not technical skills, it's the ability to work together with others.
They want them to be collaborative, communicative, creative, be able to work in a group setting. And so for us, it's a huge part of that student's education.
We want for kids to embrace one another, to accept people for who they are, to know how to relate to one another, to know how to understand themselves.
It helps me have a happier brain and be more efficient.
Definitely straightened out my life. I can't pick where to begin. It just teaches you how just to be empathetic towards others and how to listen and how to care.
It's really about developing those attitudes, skills, and knowledge that allows a student and an adult to achieve that that approach to how they will work as a person.
We have the evidence. We know it works. We have the compelling argument that we need the whole child. I think it is our time to really capitalize on it.
We actually do have evidence now. We did not have it 15 years ago. I mean, to be fair, we were in the R&D phase in the field of social and emotional learning. We're not in that phase anymore. Content is more and more of a commodity. Children own what they want now at very young ages. They will become self-directed. They can find out the dates of the Civil War without learning it from a teacher. So the question that they're bringing to school is, who am I? How do I work with you? How do we build a team? What is our purpose? Where do I fit? that nurture children to believe that it's worth learning.
More of our administrators are bringing this back to their faculty.
CASEL is the community of people trying to build this field. It has people in it that talk about their work as deeper learning, as grit, as empathy, as character. There's lots of different brands in the world, just like there are lots of different people who teach mathematics different ways, but they all join together in feeling that they're a part of the mathematics community. CASEL is the community of people committed to educating the heart, inspiring the mind.
CASEL is a collaborative, and that's important. Our name, Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. The C and the L, the collaboration and the learning, the openness to learning, the knowledge that there are other people out there doing good work, and we want to capitalize and develop that work as well as our work, and think about ways things fit together. The collaborative side of CASEL and the learning side are really important.
We work in research, we work in practice, and we work in policy.
And we committed ourselves to a school change strategy.
We spent the last 20 years learning about and studying social and emotional learning. We've written many books and guides and have been deeply immersed in this work. We then took the very research orientation to practice in large urban districts to help districts implement systemic SEL at the district level, at the building level, at the classroom level. It's exciting to be at a place and time where we as a country finally know enough about how kids are going to learn and learn best that it is making it possible for school districts to really embrace this work.
The good news is we now have some degree of evidence that says the country could actually change. Not just a classroom or a school, but the country could change. We can reduce violence, we can reduce truancy, reduce disengagement, reduce anxiety. And at the same time, we can promote better academic test scores. We can promote more positive sense of self. The only question isn't can we or how can we? The question is will we?
Okay. Back. What'd you think of that?
Well, that was a good video. That was really interesting.
Yeah, I thought so too. And I think a lot of things, I don't know, some things that may have resonated with you that let you start, and if you don't mind. And then I think this is just a very important topic. This is really, when you're talking about the whole child and teaching the whole child, we have to look at not only the academics, but the social emotional health of the child, and as well as the behavioral components. So those three components, circle or embrace the whole child, and they all have to be addressed.
Yeah, I think that's why building relationships with our students is important, to address, to comfortably address some of those social and emotional needs that they have. I see a lot more and more kids are coming with more emotional baggage to school. So really letting them know that this is a safe place where they have people that they can talk to and get the help that they need, will help them to also reach their academic goals.
True. And some of these skills, like in the very beginning, we're talking about the future or in our workforce. It's not the technical skills that students don't have when they're joining the workforce. It's the emotional social skills that they lack. I don't know if you find that nowadays in some of the younger parents maybe that you work with sometimes, or if it's just the fact that empathy is something that it has to be taught, or it has to be brought up.
Yes, really. And again, I go back to social media where kids are not forming those personal, tangible relationships. It's all electronic relationships, and they don't really know how to interact. And even the parents don't know how to interact in a face-to-face setting. So we do have to teach a lot of empathy.
Right.
Yeah. And it's not just about laughing at everyone or saying what you would, that they say a lot of stuff to people over social media, but you can't just say stuff like that,
Right.
To people. So teaching just those relationship skills is really what our kids need.
I totally agree with that. That without that, how does one develop a positive sense of self? How do they, because they become so engrossed in this social interaction that sometimes there's a lot of um, kids that are emotionally damaged by this, but they just don't know how to react because they don't have a positive sense of their own self.
Right.
So, it is it's a challenging time for kids at that age, that the adolescent age, as well as a challenging time for parents who are parenting the kids of this age group as well. And our parents are, I think, looking for supports and looking for structures and ideas of how to address it. If you look here, the logo for Castle, if you click on the logo, it will take you to their website. And I learned about this because I do a lot of work with the multi-tier system of support. And there's some great things in here. Sacramento City Schools, they really embrace the Castle model, and they modified it a bit to fit their needs. But it is it's something that some resources and ways to start talking more about. We can't always just put the blame on kids not learning just because they're not ready for school. There's a lot of things going along that are happening with those kids. As you mentioned earlier, the emotional baggage that they have, that they bring to school. Teachers can't control that. That's something that happens beyond the school. But we try to give our kids coping skills and how to be able to come to a center point where they can engage. Have you looked into mindfulness at all? Mindfulness in the classroom?
No.
That's been a popular trend that I've noticed, especially in some of the schools that I support up in Calaveras and Amador and Tuolumne counties. And mindfulness is a way of helping kids deal with stress, and how to be really a way of addressing how do I deal with those moments that could be and evolve into an altercation. Whereas a lot to do with centering yourself, being present in the moment, doing some breathing exercises, really builds a community with classrooms. So it is a very popular topic. A lot of schools in the Bay Area use the mindfulness as a way to get kids, to help kids deal with trauma and with emotional issues that come up. So if you're interested in talking more about that at another time, I'd be happy to share some of my resources with you.
Yeah, Fred, we took that training, in Calveras. A lot of us did. Hi, Fred. And it's been really good, and it's not. We've had very little pushback from parents as far as, oh, is it you're teaching religion or something like that in the classroom? And it is really mostly about breathing and just focusing. And I left the district that I trained in, but it's been really good. And they do it like once or twice a week, and it's just like 10 minutes. And it's very scripted lessons when you start. And I've gone into classrooms and watched, and the kids just get really, really quiet. And and kids report that they use it outside the classroom. So we've had good success up here. Whole schools have adopted it as well, done it school-wide, like up in West Point. So it is a really good program.
Good. One thing that I had a conversation with a school board member up in the foothills, and she wanted to talk about mindfulness. And the one thing that she shared with me that really resonated with me was that kids that learn about mindfulness and how to center themselves and be present in the moment and have these positive reinforcements and ways to deal with stress, take that home with them, so that can be, that's just something that'll just a life skill or an aid to help them interact with situations that they may be confronted with. So it's a life skill that really will that are in those situations that, again, we don't know what it looks like because we're not there, right? So, any thoughts on that, Karen? Have you seen that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I know some teachers who've talked to kids, if they come in and say they're not sleeping well or having a rough time, they recommend, well, you could do mindfulness just like we do it in our classroom. Try doing that before you go to sleep. And I think being able to have students take it outside the classroom is really important, not just to the playground, but home, because sometimes kids are going home to very stressful situations.
Right.
And we don't know that, we just know they come to school the next day and they're kind of a mess. Yeah. And sometimes we don't know why. So, it's been good for me and as an adult to know how to do mindfulness practice. I don't do it as regularly as I should, but it is good in those moments to just go, okay, this is just a moment. We've always said for years, take 3 deep breaths. Well, yeah. Take 3 deep breaths and really focus on that. It's pretty simple stuff. And the training is not that intense, really. It's the ones we did were online. And we actually got first 5 to pay for our team. So there is money out there. It's expensive training, but I think there's funding you could get.
Right. There is the online program you're speaking of, I believe, is Mindful Schools.
That's correct.
So mindfulschools.org is a website you can go to learn a little bit more. They have a few sample lessons on their website as well. But Karen's right, the breathing is really important. I practice, since I had been giving a few trainings on this to school districts, I started practicing some of it myself. And because we all work in stressful environments. And I'll tell you, the breathing component is really helpful and will even help me fall asleep at night because of trying to get all that stuff out of your mind, all those things, the things you think you have to do. But it's a real, I think, very healthy to do. I think it lowers your blood pressure. I think it can do a lot of positive things. So if you ever have to have your blood pressure checked by the doctor, if you do that breathing beforehand, I'll tell you, it will really help.
I'm definitely going to try it.
Oh, good. Oh, great. Okay. Well, anyway, I'm glad we were able to talk about this because this is really a really important piece of the work we do, is being sure that our kids are social and emotionally healthy, and that all relates to their engagement in school. So it all connects to school climate. So great. Good job. All right. Let me move on to the next slide. So, so this slide is ideas for the administrator to help create an inclusive school environment. So we're going to go through a few of these, and I'm going to take you to an article from, I think it's Education Weekly, that talks about 5 different ways that to create an inclusive school environment. One of those, of course, is talking about getting out of your office, you know, being visible, being you know, part of the environment as much as you can, being seen by you know, parents, staff, by students, teachers, etc. Having authentic conversations. You know, doing your best to listen to what students, staff, and parents have to say. That's a part of being very authentic, is really being the one that will take the time to listen and let people tell their story, or how they're feeling at that time. So important thing is to have those authentic conversations. Encouraging student voice. We know that students, if we want students to be autonomous in their learning, that we need to offer them many opportunities to be to speak and show their voice through different ways, being cognizant of their body language and how we communicate with one another, giving students that opportunity to listen to one another. And cooperative learning opportunities, could be working in project-based learning, it could be in peer work, whatever that might look like. Going deeper with your faculty meetings, you know, by sometimes flipping your meetings can be a way to do that, where you maybe send out information that you want to be sure teachers know beforehand, so that you can actually spend time going deeper into a certain topic of interest. So engaging with parents, of course, very important, as we've been talking about that all morning, is that parents' voice is important, and sometimes that is a can be challenging at times, because when they don't know all the information, you need to be that person that can filter and be able to make parents feel that what they have to say is important, at the same time be able to contribute to ways that you can assist them with whatever situation they may have, both positive and in challenging situations. Some other ways, how else do you see yourself in this role of as an administrator?
Definitely. I know it's said that get out of your office, but that's a definite given. I think I need to do, even as an assistant principal, do that more. Mm-hmm. Get out of my office, but I do try to get out to interact with the students as much as possible to kind of lower some of the discipline issues. Mm-hmm. That's a good question.
Yeah. So maybe obviously some ways you might do this is being a greeter in the morning, and greeting families that are coming into school, trying to make some walkthroughs and just doing like check-ins. I remember as a teacher myself, I always enjoyed when the principal just came by to say hello, and the kids knew that there was this support that obviously was important to the teacher to have supported the administrator, but it's obviously important to the students to know that there's somebody that's heading and leading us all. So important to be visible in that respect. Paying attention to the front office. How is the front office interacting with parents, both physically or on the phone, or how are we communicating with our families of English learners? Those are some things to be thinking about. If you click on the hyperlink when you are on the Google Slides, it will take you to the it's called Finding Common Ground from Education Week. So this is where you might get some ideas about what you might be able to do in regards to the different ways to promote an inclusive school climate. So that's all there for you to look at. Even flipping your parent communication can be a topic that can give parents a head start, on knowing what's going on. So if you are having parent meetings, trying to give them that information ahead of time, or how to navigate through the system can be also a way of helping, instead of conducting a meeting and just starting, okay, this is what we're going to do. But in other words, flipping the meeting and giving them more reasons to interact in the dialogue can be helpful too. Okay, so now you know where that is. Okay. All right. So the school climate, health, and learning. I know you are involved in doing the Healthy Kids Survey. So the links here that are on this Google slide here will take you to some of the main changes to the Healthy Kids Survey, to those instruments for secondary, elementary, staff, parent surveys. So that information I wanted to include because it is updated. Karen, do you have any thoughts on any of the changes that have been in the school climate survey, Healthy Kids Survey?
No, not really. I didn't really focus that much on the changes. We just kind of, got everybody to do it. And it was really, some of the feedback from staff was this is for my alt ed school, was not very positive. And it was very concerning to some of us, but the principal was able to really sit down with the staff and say, look, you've expressed these concerns as a staff. Let's prioritize your concerns and let's work on them, one at a time. So I think that's, even though sometimes it's hard news to hear, we suspected it wasn't going to be that good because of the staff makeup right now, but I think they're just going to continue to move forward. And the principal it's really hard to get alt ed parents to do anything. So he's really, he's given incentives like Subway, those kind of things. He's committed to even drive surveys over to parents to try to get them to take it. So we're really using it as a strong tool this year for a survey to help drive our LCAP.
Great.
As well. So and this is my first year writing an LCAP, so I'm going to be really leaning on it heavily. You're going to help me, right, Fred?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, we learn together. That's,
yeah, right.
We just learn together. Nobody knows everything.
Right.
Right. Another feature of West Ed, they have a lot of great information about the Healthy Kids Survey. So if you wanted to know more, there is a plethora of information. You can actually look at the surveys yourself if you want to look closer at those. You can also, look at frequently asked questions and go to these hyperlinks, and you can look at the cost of this. But this is all, how is it funded, Karen, for districts to do the?
I'm really not sure how ours was funded. Our student support services person took care of it,
Yeah.
but she was able, I know the funding increased, whatever funding she was using, and we were able to do it. She's doing it countywide at no cost to districts, or staff, students, and parents.
Okay.
And we looked at some other surveys. We actually looked at one from a WE survey from ICLE, and the Healthy Kids survey is much better.
Good.
It's much more comprehensive.
Right. So
it hits that social emotional piece.
Right. So getting everyone to do their types of surveys. You have the teacher survey, the parent survey, the student surveys, right? So those teacher surveys need to also include the paraprofessionals, right? So that
everybody, bus drivers, cafeteria workers,
everybody in the staff, so that you get a whole picture of what's going on. Because what's happening in the classroom is different than what's happening in the cafeteria or in the bus or on the yard duty, right?
Yep.
So I wanted you to have access to this, and you can look closer into more information about these, and actually look at the surveys themselves and look at the research behind it. But it's good to hear that you've looked at others and found that this to be a reliable tool to use. Great. Okay. So this is some tools that I thought might be of interest to you. These are all put out by WestEd. This one, if you click on each of these when you do get to look closer, there's a workbook for improving school climate that is free online. It's awfully large, 152 pages, but it's broken down by, I'll get to, sorry if I'm going to make you dizzy here for a second, but obviously it's broken down into these 5 sections, and an overview section, a section on closing the achievement gap, special education, very important. All of these are very important, migrant education, and the appendices. And so they will kind of guide you through as to what do you, the how and the what, and how, what next steps are and what to do with your, to what to focus on, improve, maintain, and strengthen. So it's a resource. Karen, have you used this before?
I have not.
All right. And then this I felt was a really good one. This is Climate Connection. And this is considered a toolkit. And it actually takes you through activities that you can do. There's a series of, I think, how many, 13 or so low cost or no cost activities that you can do with different members of your school community that you might be interested in looking at as maybe doing something during a staff meeting or doing something with a student leadership group. But it gives you directions on how to use this and what follow-ups should be done and modifications tips. So it's you may find that it's something that you could use as far as, hey, you know what, let's look at some of these tools and see how we can promote some different areas that need, like culture and focusing on culture, or report card chats. But we need to get kids involved in a lot of things that are going on here, because like I mentioned earlier, their voice is important as well. If we want to promote them to be, we want to promote student-centered learning and autonomous learning, you know, we need to give them experiences, okay? The last one here is a climate for academic success. And this is a full report on how school climate distinguishes schools that are beating the achievement odds. And what this was a study on, I believe it was 40 different schools where the survey, what was it called here? They look at the relationship between school climate and success as measured by the California Healthy Kids Survey. And the results of the study showed that beating the odds schools, the BTO schools, how they were able to improve their academic standing. I would imagine it would their suspension rate, absenteeism, and all those things would have been part of the reason why they did so well. So the introduction, I think there's, let me see how many chapters there are. Five chapters. And I thought it might be something that you might be interested. I know you don't have a lot of spare time, but it may be a conversation starter, or to talking more when we're talking about data and what do we do with the data, because that's one thing that really, you know, if we look at successful models, is you know, we've taken the data, so now what are we going to do with it, and what is that? What are our strengths and what are our opportunities? And we need to celebrate our strengths because we're doing great things, but we also have opportunities to make a difference. So it's that cycle of continuous improvement, I think, that we're all working at, right? Okay. So my animations are a little delayed there. A couple other things I wanted to bring to your attention. Coming up, the week of the 15th through the 18th is No Name Calling Week. Whoops, sorry about that. And this is GLSEN is the association for, I think, represents all children, all gender types, and so forth. And it is, you know, it is a, I think a good way to start conversations about, you know, why we respect one another. The No Name Calling Week should be every day. It shouldn't be just a week, but it should be something that's discussed and supported throughout the day for kids. There are some lesson plans that are embedded in the website, and you may be interested in looking at some of those. They're all free. And it might be something to use with your counselors to promote a positive and social emotional learning for kids. We're all different and alike. And that's, I think, nowadays, we really need to focus on the well-being of our kids, because they all come to us, you know, with different identities and different needs and different backgrounds and different types of families. So keeping an open mind to being sure that respect and for diversity and respect for our kids is important, regardless of where they come from or what they do, right? Okay. Mix It Up is another one that I like to share. It's a way of promoting that lunch, that environment in the lunchroom, you know, where a lot of things can go wrong. and really promotes positive interaction with kids. So Mix It Up, there's a little video here. We have a couple of minutes. It's just about a minute and a half. I want to show you. It might entice you to look at this a little further. So
Hi, everyone. My name is Monita Bell, and I am the coordinator of Mix It Up at Lunch Day here at Teaching Tolerance. I'm very excited to be with you today. Thanks for tuning in. We're going to spend just a minute talking about Mix It Up and all the many, many reasons why it has such a positive impact in so many schools. First of all, students have told us there are a few key areas in school where segregation and bullying are the worst, and unfortunately, the cafeteria is one of them. So Mix can help the cafeteria be a safer and more inclusive place, which hopefully can spread to other parts of the school as well. Also, the teaching tolerance community tells us socioeconomic status, appearance, and race are the biggest social dividers in their schools. And we know from behavioral research that positive interactions can help reduce these types of prejudices. So we know mixing it up works from our research and from the feedback we get from schools. So it's worth the effort. It really is. And finally, Mix It Up is just fun. And the fun factor has no limit. We hear about school-wide flash mobs and block parties and DJs and parades. And I think that's why we had over 6,000 schools and 3 million students participate last year. That's a lot of awesome conversations and friendships being made and a lot of fun being had. Next week, we'll talk more about getting the most out of your Mix event. But in the meantime, we hope you'll register at mixitup.org.
So this comes from Teaching Tolerance, and if you're not familiar with this website, I would recommend taking a look at it because it really does help give educators and administrators some good ideas of teaching tolerance. It is a part of a way that we teach empathy, I believe. And so I would definitely recommend looking a little closer at this and maybe thinking about maybe next year as a school project on how can we get the kids to take ownership of positive behavior in the lunchroom and thinking of some activities that are promoted with the students' voice. And because we know that students, if it becomes driven from them, it's more likely that it's going to have a better buy-in from other kids, right? So anyway, just ideas, just to share. The last one I wanted to talk about is the recess. So also, what happens on the recess can really affect the climate of school as well. And this is a reading that you can go to from Edutopia. I'm sure you're aware of Edutopia, but I go here a lot for different blogs that I read. And this Jill Vialet, I think her last name is, she's the founder and CEO of Playworks. I watched a TED Talk that she gave yesterday, and just amazing stuff. But anyway, the proven benefits of having a recess where kids feel safe, they understand the games, they practice good sportsmanship, really important. So here's some recommendations they have. Map the playground, determine the favorite games, provide boundaries for games so that kids are respecting each other's space. If you have designated areas for things, then you makes it easier for kids to locate activities and things to do. I love this one. Go play. When adults model behaviors of respect and inclusion on the playground, students feel safe and engaged to do the same. So if you show good sportsmanship, or you show, hey, I'm going to do some baskets, or I'm going to do some four squares, or whatever it might be, just every once in a while, just to get involved and see what it's like to be at their, within their social portion of recess time. Teach fun and simple games. Teach those conflict resolution skills and those positive messages that kids need to be saying to one another. That nice try, we always practice. We get better in time. Whatever it is, good job. I like how you've done. But anyway, those are some ideas to think about as well, because the fact is, once the kids are out at recess, again, unless you are watching them yourself, you don't have control of what can happen. And then a lot of times those kids aren't, maybe in the office due to disciplinary issues that took place on the playground. So we want to be sure that we address that. And you were talking about PBIS as being an important part of your school structure. Is it Monique? Is that your first name?
Simone.
Simone, I'm sorry, beg your pardon. So Simone, you were talking about how PBIS is such an important piece of this, and this affects recess as well, right?
Yeah, we've our district adopted Playworks. So our CSA, who does recess, she implemented some of the Playworks strategies.
Great. So this is familiar to you. Great.
Mm-hmm.
Good. There's an article that was in our San Joaquin County office Outlook about a school in Manteca called Great Valley Valley Elementary, and they use peaceful playgrounds.
Right.
And so this is a little. I couldn't find the article from the Outlook magazine, but this was on the Manteca Unified School District website. We have had a presentation from the school last year at one of our gatherings, and it really has promoted, it's just changed discipline problems, reduced the discipline issues, because kids understood what the purpose of a play was, not that you take away the creativity of play, but you give them parameters and expectations as how you play and how you interact with one another. So since you already are in Playworks, I'm sure it has many of the same parallels. But if you want to know more information about peaceful playgrounds, you can click on that link there, and it'll open up to their website. My understanding is it's not cheap, but I think in looking at what other schools are doing, I think you can create a model of your own that would mirror a lot of this. It's just taking the time and energy and to be sure that you're able to do the things you need to do, like structure the rules for games and the painting of the playground laptop and that kind of thing, right? Okay. All right. So that takes us to the end of the call here today. So it's been great having you here today, but we still have a few minutes if anyone has anything they would like to share about school climate or things that are happening at your school.
I just think this is some useful information and gives me some more ideas on what to implement as far as with the students and the social emotional learning. And I'm looking again at our playground, doing some more work with our playground.
Good. Yeah, because sometimes you have a lot of these things in place, but you got to go back and look at them again and see, how is this really working, or could this be the the thing that's creating, you know, some problems, or is it, you know, being sure that your substitutes that come in to do yard duty, because you sometimes will have substitute yard duty people come in. Do they know? Do they have some guidelines to go by? When I did kind of vice principal work before, I was in charge of being sure that the playground rules and so forth were reviewed consistently with the yard duty, so that we keep that lines of communication open. Right. Okay. So, anyone else have anything else to share today? We finished about 10 minutes early. So if you guys are good, then we'll say thanks a lot for joining us. I'll send a recording of the meeting out, and if there's any additional information that you would like, please don't hesitate to contact me here at San Joaquin County Office of Education. And
thank you.
And I want to thank you so much for joining the call. We're going to have a separate call at 10:45 for parent involvement if you're interested in joining us then. If you're not, you'll still not be able to join us. You'll have access to the recording for that. And I believe I sent the slides ahead of time with the email, so you have access to the slides already. Okay?
Thanks, Fred.
Thank
you. Everybody. Thank you so much. It's great to chat with you, and look forward to talking to you in the future.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.